Hey Mudwater fam, Nikki here, out in sunny Los Angeles, about to go on a fantastic run after having a great cup of Mudwater. Really can't complain. It's a beautiful day and feeling great. Hope everyone else is having just as great of a day. Now go kick some butt. Bye.
Hey, Nikki. Thanks for sending that in. It's always cool to hear from customers and how mud fits into their day. If anyone else wants to be featured on the podcast, you can record it on your phone and send it to podcast@mudwtr.com. And if we pick it, we will send you a free tin of mud. Welcome to Trends with Benefits. This is our short form podcast where we give you microdosed episodes for your day. My name's Garrett Molnex. I'm one of the team members here at Mud. Today we had Kyle Chairman sit down with Mark Devine. Mark is an author, a former Navy SEAL where he graduated at the top of his BUDS class, the founder of SEAL Fit, a recognized leader in the SEAL community with 9 years of active duty experience, and retired as commander. On today's episode, Kyle and Mark discuss how he became an author and his current writing process. We hope you enjoy the show.
When you began writing your first book, what were some of the most helpful writing practices that you cultivated?
Well, I consider myself an accidental author, right? In fact, one of the challenges I've had is dealing with that imposter syndrome of like, holy crap, like how did I become a New York Times bestselling author? It wasn't certainly something I put on my goal list. And so I had to go through, and I'm still go through to this day, trying to figure out, hey, what's my best writing process? And I really think for me, it's a hybrid, right? So my first book, The Way of the SEAL, because it was brought to me by an agent, and the agent said, well, you're just you're a knuckle dragging Navy SEAL. You don't know how to write, but we know you've got some great content because you've created this cutting edge award winning training program at SEAL Fit. So we want you to write a book on kind of mental toughness, but you're going to have a co-author. And I was like, I don't think I need a co-author. I'm a pretty smart guy. And I'm not a bad writer. I think I could do this. I said, no. You need a co-author. So I have a co-author, and I wrote almost every word in the book, and the co-author gets 50% of all the proceeds. But anyways, so I learned then that it's not so bad thing to have a co-author, because oftentimes in writing, two minds are better than one. And so anytime I've gone off and tried to do something completely on my own with my self-published work, oftentimes I get stuck. And because I don't have someone to bounce ideas off of, I don't have someone to say, you know what, Mark, that sucks, right? You got to take that out, or that whole chapter doesn't belong, or this is great, but it really needs to be organized this way. And so I've always endeavored since then to not necessarily have a co-author. That's the first time I've ever co-authored it, but to have a writer who can act as my sounding board, as my book doctor, which is actually a term in that industry, to fix things that are broken with my, not my style, but my organizational thinking, and to do like editorial work. Usually, when you work with a big publishing house, they'll provide someone to do that with you. And I found that some of them are good and some of them are not good. So what I've been endeavoring, and I finally found it, is to find someone who really, really gets the way I think and the way I write, and they can really be your writing partner. I mean, they'll never show up on the title unless you want them to, or not on the title, but on the cover. But certainly they get paid for it, and that's what they love to do. So that's one aspect, is to have a good partner who can help improve it in a lot of ways. And secondly is kind of the battle rhythm of when to write, right? When are you at your peak state for writing? And what's that process look like? And I found that there's two ways that I write best. Some people say, well, you got to write every day and then in the morning. And I'm like, that's never really worked for me, because that's my training time. You know what I mean? I'm an athlete like you, and 5 a.m. until 9 or 10 is my peak training time. So I don't spend 2 hours sitting down and writing, like I'm moving my body. So that doesn't work for me. What does work for me is to frame out what I want to say in a book, and then to bullet point each chapter, and then to speak it to my writing partner, and to have it recorded, and then have them spin back the first chapter, which then I go to town on editing. So that way I'm never starting with a blank piece of paper, right? Or a blank screen where I'm staring at the screen going, what do I want to say? So that works really well for me. And then when it comes to like my friend Cal Newport talks about deep work, when it comes to needing to go deep to like finish the manuscript, I do a writing retreats. And so I'll just go away to, I have a ski condo out in Utah. Let's go away to the ski condo and I'll just write for hours every day, and when I'm fried, I'll just grab my skis and go catch a couple runs or something like that. So that's worked well for me. Like go deep, spend a couple weeks just finishing up a manuscript or finishing up an edit. I know maybe I went a little long and a little too detailed on that, but I think
That's
it's interesting for any one of you listeners who is a writer. This is a big struggle. You know what I mean? And overcoming resistance, like my friend Stephen Pressfield talks about resistance in his book, The War of Art, which is a great book for aspiring authors or all authors, by the way. And you got to find some process that works for you. And it's going to be different for everybody. So there you have it.
It's not bad. That's not bad. I am a huge fan of Stephen Pressfield as well. And I just had it written down from a past meeting that I did. I was listening to Stephen Pressfield on Tim Ferriss's show, and he was talking about this line in Genesis, and I'm trying to think of the word, but it is what they referred to as that which keeps you from reaching your potential. And he had a name for it, and it's similar to what he talks about as resistance. And he was elucidating that necessary grind to get in touch with your higher angels.
Mm-hmm.
And writing is such a good example of that, because I don't know one good writer who refers to it as fun.
No, there's joy in the completion of a project, and there's joy in the process of, seeing a project unfold, the creative process unfold, giving birth to something that didn't exist before and then did later. I think every creative person has that kind of like struggle between the daily grind that you talk about and then letting something fly, right? And hoping it lands and then not being okay if it doesn't, just moving on to the next thing. It's not unlike the resistance of a rough workout regimen that's going to get you to, your big wave season, or for me, going through SEAL training to become a Navy SEAL. And then you think you're done, but guess what? You're not. Then you go into a SEAL platoon and you go through even more arduous training just to get, to go to combat. And then combat sucks, right? There's the daily grind of combat. But after every mission, you're just like, wow, that was intense. That was awesome. And when you get home, there's the, just that incredible feeling of accomplishment. But then you get ready and guess what? You're back into it and you do it all over again. And it never ends. But every time you go through that cycle of preparation, going through the grind of doing the work, facing the challenges and setbacks, and then conquering and overcoming and breaking through to the next level, it's a mini hero's journey in this long trajectory of hero's journeys that we call our life. I think writing, one of the things I love about Steve is he's really good at kind of fleshing out that hero's journey in fictional characters. But, if you ever asked him, I've got a podcast with him in a couple of weeks. I'm excited to talk to him about his new book, A Man at Arms, because I think he alluded to this, that this is really his story, even though it's a story about a warrior going through the journey of his warrior archetypes kind of unfolding. And it's really about Stephen as a writer warrior, or a warrior of words. We all have that, right? We go through those struggles and we meet resistance and we can shy from it. And in fact, our entire culture seems to be organized around preventing people from having to suffer, right? Whereas you and I know that it's through suffering and overcoming challenges. And I don't mean kind of suffering that comes from like getting mugged or something. I mean like self-induced suffering, training, suffering, accepting big challenges and goals and going after them and dealing with the setbacks and the suffering. That's what leads to growth. And that's what leads to the reward that, that authentic people find. And that's what Steve was talking about in the book of Genesis, right? Avoiding that suffering, avoiding the challenge that is going to accompany that growth is what keeps us from living the life that we deserve.
Yeah. I wanted to underscore a point that you made about having some kind of confidant that you can bounce ideas off of, which not many writers talk about. It's seen, at least from the outside, as this completely solitary pursuit. And we've been going through a year of lockdown, and all the writers are like, oh, this is the life that I live anyways.
Right.
I'm a professional social distancer. But I've found that one of the problems with not having people with whom you can talk to about your ideas is you can get lost in the thicket too easily.
Yeah.
You can spend a week on a chapter that shouldn't be there in the first place, or you can labor over an idea that your friend could just tell you, that shouldn't be in it. And oftentimes you can come to those realizations by doing what you do, where you just talk it out. And oftentimes the way that it rolls off your tongue, you can tell whether or not it's true or powerful or not.
Right.
The opposite could be true, right? You could have just skipped over some little idea. And if you have a friend who's a really good listener, he or she might be able to say, no, that's it. That's the thesis of your book right there.
Yes.
And you never even knew it because you were so lost on this other idea. Or in my case, oftentimes it's just a clever phrase that I want so badly to be in there because everyone's going to know how fucking smart I am if I have that phrase in there. But really, it has nothing to do with a point
it's
that's
a shiny
important
distraction,
to make.
right?
Yeah.
I love
but
that.
People are going to know I'm so damn smart.
Of course. Well, that's when the ego, if that, yeah, your point is spot on. We get trapped in our egos wanting to be perfect and wanting to have and we can run around in circles. And at the end of the day, it might be complete crap because you just miss, like you said, miss the point. We're inside the bottle. We can't read the label. It helps to provide, have someone, hold up a mirror and also to provide different perspectives to us. Don't get me wrong. There are authors who can do it all alone and they produce great work. I think it's rare. At least it doesn't work for me, So I don't know about Steve and Pressfield or some of these other guys. Like my friend Ryan Holiday produces some great work, and I think he's largely, does it on his own. I haven't asked him about it, but so that's
he's a big fan of books.
Yeah, exactly. He reads it. That's the other thing. Back to kind of how we started this conversation. Most really good writers read voraciously. One of my mentors was Ken Wilber. He would read 400 or so books for every one that he would write. And I try to, I'm not saying I read 400 for every book I write, but I try to read at least 2 books a week. I listen to one and I'm reading another. And sometimes I'm reading 3 or 4 at a time. And I'll read each book kind of differently depending upon the type of book. Some it's like slow digestion, like we were talking about earlier. Others, I'll consume the whole thing in a couple hours, through speed reading, and others I'll listen to, which, is more filler time.
Hey, it's Kyle again. Head over to trendswithbenefits.com and sign up for our newsletter to get weekly stories about psychedelics, adventure, and well-being.